Hello and welcome to Every Woman with me, Anna Umbima. And do you speak English, French, Russian and German? An interpreter explains, a head for languages. Now, many of us speak more than one language, but it's something of a skill to communicate fluently in a variety of different languages simultaneously. Barbara Chisholm is such a polyglot. It's her job. She finds that many people think that her job is glamorous, characterised by jet-setting and meeting foreign dignitaries. So in this week's diary, she's decided to set the record straight.
Freelance conference interpreter? Many people have no idea what it means, and it's hard to explain. It's always changing. Most of us have seen television pictures of heads of state surrounded by interpreters after a summit conference. This high-profile work is usually done by staffers, employed full-time by the governments concerned. I'm bilingual in English and German. I also work from Russian, so I've been lucky enough to work for political leaders like Chancellor Kohl, President Gorbachev and John Major. However, these assignments are a fraction of my work, which is just as likely to cover pipe laying, reinforced plastics or a film festival. Did you know you can interpret for hours without meeting the speaker? Usually you're stuck in a tiny soundproof box called a booth, peering at speakers through glass windows and linked by radio. You receive the speaker's words through headphones, and in simultaneous interpretation, you're talking to an audience, hearing you through their earphones. It demands intense concentration and is very tiring, working in relays with a colleague taking over every 30 minutes or so. And while conference delegates may be comfortable, many of us think booth designers want us to freeze or fry. Friends are often surprised to learn how much you earn per day. However, you might only work 6 days a month, and technical conferences can demand days of unpaid preparation. Unless I really understand, I can't interpret. Native English speakers, British, American, Australian for example, are relatively easy to interpret, as are Germans and Austrians, though the Swiss can be a little more difficult. It doesn't matter how quickly they talk. I really can talk that fast, and clearly too. Whether the audience takes it in is a different matter, but the speaker's responsible for pace, not me. The real problem comes with non-native speakers who think they speak good English or German, but don't. But if it doesn't make sense, then you just do the best you can, read between the lines, and try to summarize what you think the speaker means. You can't butt in. He or she may have an important message. In an increasingly tight economic environment, a conference organizer might have told him English, German, or shut up. We can't afford your language. Mistakes? Yes, everyone makes them occasionally. I still blush over one of my first assignments. There are 2 words, similar in English and German. Instead of referring to fruitful cooperation, I spoke of frightful cooperation. In general, a freelance can't afford to be wrong. A freelance who makes mistakes doesn't get the next assignment. And if you did get it wrong, it'd be pretty clear, because conference speakers would start talking at cross purposes. Really, it's like an exam every time. And I've had a non-native speaker use a seriously bad obscenity which he clearly didn't understand. I did. Hesitated, stumbled, recovered and used a far more moderate term, not forgetting the time I was introduced as the minister's wife rather than the interpreter. And then there are words one would rather avoid. My pet hate is anaesthetist. Sometimes I'm tempted to cheat and use an Americanism, anesthesiologist. But I'm just as likely to stumble on that. Anaesthetist. Well, I got it out that time, but you see what I mean. If the job sounds glamorous, with first-class hotels and business flights, it can be, but usually isn't. And there are days one would rather forget. I'd been hired for a meeting on the Swedish island of Gotland. Things went wrong as soon as I arrived at Berlin's Tegel airport around midday. Scheduled to fly via Stockholm, I'd been ready to settle down with a book when I saw flight cancelled. The airline flew us to Hamburg, northern Germany, promising a connection to Stockholm. The Hamburg flight was late. The Stockholm one postponed. We finally reached the Swedish capital after midnight. The airline put us up, but in another city. And to top it all, my luggage was nowhere to be found. Work started at 9:30. I arrived, travel-stained and weary, at 8:45. Without suitcase, my clothes, or makeup. I was leaving the hotel when the airline finally delivered the case. Whew. By 9:30 I was working and went on until nearly midnight. Stimulating, yes. Interesting, yes. But if I was describing the work of a conference interpreter, I don't think I'd choose the word glamorous.
And I think I'm inclined to agree. Barbara Chisholm's diary.